This show is sponsored by the Comics Shop. We hope you enjoy the show.
All right, g'day, and welcome to Tuesday Chinwag, episode 28. My name's Leigh Chalker, creator of Battle for Bustle, and well, man, I gotta tell you, I'm pretty excited tonight because when I was a little fella, and Dad was buying comics, and there were, Cyclone Comics, etc., was getting around, and this gentleman I haven't had the opportunity to talk to one-on-one, so I'm very much looking forward to this. Mr. Glenn Lumsden, how are you, sir?
Very well, thank you. Good. Hey, am I loud enough? Do I need to turn up the mic?
Mate. I can hear you, but if you want to turn it up, I'll leave that up to you. But we'll work on pickles as the safety word. All right. Any technical issues, just throw out pickles.
That's get too rough.
That's it, man. So, yeah.
I think it's my beanie covering my ears.
All right. So if anyone watching at home hasn't seen the show before, it's based on a couple of prompting questions, which are who, what, where, when, why, and how. And basically, look, sometimes we get through them, and most of the time we don't. So I'm just going to delve straight into it, Glenn. Mate, who?
So I'm Glenn Lumsden, and I've started drawing comics sort of like semi-professionally, I guess, from the 80s. And that ended up, I started off working mostly with Tad, who does Dark Nebula. And we met through being comic collectors, which is actually, I think, how we all met. Then I remember, I think Tad had just finished school, and I must have been 12 or 13 years old or whatever. And I think for his end of year big art project, he'd done this Dark Nebula portfolio, which I found very, very impressive. And then I think it was a year or two later that he said, right, well, I'm going to actually put out a comic and, get it all printed properly and distributed and the whole bit, which he did. And I can't remember if I helped him at all with that. I might have helped him with some layouts or something. I can't remember. But then after that, when he did, following issues, I helped him there. I drew it for a while, and then we met up with the other Cyclone guys like Gary and Dave, and that carried on until we got some gigs in America in the 90s, and that started off reprinting a lot of Australian material, and then that led to doing stuff for the Americans, new stuff for the Americans. And then that led to, sort of working from smaller companies to working for larger companies like DC and Marvel. And that led to me giving up and just running away and doing, I guess you could say that. But it sort of, especially when we were doing the Phantom for Marvel, we got a lot of offers from advertising agencies and places like that who just wanted advertising work done in a superhero style, and so they came to us, and that's when we learnt that advertising illustration pays about like 100 times more than drawing comics. And also it's like, instead of drawing 8 panels a page, you draw one picture once. And so that was, sort of like, also once you get onto the treadmill of regular comic books in America, it doesn't stop. You're just on that treadmill. If you're on a monthly, it's like you realize quite suddenly, oh my God, suddenly the next few years will look a bit grim. And I just marvel when I think of, I just marvel when I think of, those old school guys like Romita and Kirby and Gene Cole and their ability to just
Pump out pages.
monthly mag, but like do like 3, and they do them for a decade or 2 decades, and yeah, they were just made of stronger stuff, I reckon. But anyway, yeah. So I left comics for a while for magazine work and commercial illustration, and then I came back again in the 2014, 2015 or whatever. And I'm currently doing covers for Frew and also some sequential stories for Frew as well, which are taking me forever. So, like years per story.
Yeah. Oh, well, everyone works to their own pace, mate. You would know yours, I would assume, with your experience in the industry just from that small snippet. So that's a great rundown, man. I really like that because there was like little points in there where I was going to go, ask the question now, but I'm going to, so back. All right. Now, little Glenn and you and Tad are, collecting comics and stuff like that. So were you drawing at that stage, or did drawing come to you later?
I reckon I started drawing at the age of 3, and I used to draw over everything. I remember, Mum's cookbooks, just in all the margins. It was just like drawings. And that, I think the first comics that I got into were Walt Disney stuff. I remember there was a Walt Disney weekly magazine. It might have been British, and I'd get that every week. And that went on for a few years until I, sort of like tried out. I think Harvey Comics was next, and then I used to always have my eye on Marvel Comics, but I was too scared to buy one. And
what prompted the fear? Like, was it what Mum and Dad would say if you bought it home? They're a bit more expensive, like Mum might have gone, no, you're not getting that one today.
No, it was just the characters were always fighting. You got to remember, they're like Mickey Mouse and Goofy, making a birthday cake versus Iron Man with half his metal ripped off and the blaster going, and now you die. I was just like, and I would occasionally, like maybe once a year, I would buy one, and I wouldn't understand a word of it, and I would just be too scared, and I'd just go, nah, back to Harvey, back to Richie Rich, Jackie Jokers, and all that sort of stuff. And then I discovered a British weekly magazine called Mighty World of Marvel, and they were reprinting all this stuff from the mid-'60s. It was like your Jack Kirby, Chick Stone, Fantastic Four, and that I could handle. And so that sort of introduced me to Marvel in a way that I could sort of work my way up to the contemporary stuff of the early 70s, keeping in mind that there was a huge cultural revolution between, say, 65 and 73, just across the board. And so what was being done in comics in 65 was really kids stuff. And then you go to fast forward to 73 and you've got guys like Steve Englehart and Jerry Conway. And I remember getting a Roy Thomas, Neil Adams Conan, which was just like, it was just slaughter. I was just going like, and even today, I look back on that comic and think that was pretty hardcore. But a lot of the stories too were quite, I guess, sophisticated. Like stuff like, remember Craig Russell and Don McGregor did a series called Killraven, and I couldn't make heads or tails of it. I probably still can't. But it was, so I think a lot of the creators back then, it was a gonzo time. Stan Lee had kind of headed off to Hollywood, and I don't think anyone was minding the ship. And so there was some like real terrible stuff coming out, but there were some absolute gems, and you just think, how the hell did they get this published? Like, I remember Jim Starlin doing these amazing trippy Captain Marvel and Warlock comics, and there was one Warlock comic where he was obviously just taking the piss out of Marvel, and he had all these characters who were obviously, this one's obviously Stan Lee, and this one's obviously John Romita, and I remember there's some scene in it where they're all producing a giant steaming pile of poo or something like that, and it all collapses on them. And I think somehow Warlock finds the one gem in the base of the poo. And I was thinking, it's kind of ironic that he's making this comment on a company that is also allowing him to publish this comment on the company. So obviously no one was watching. People were just going, oh, yep, just roll the presses. But yeah, it was so.
Send it out.
What's that?
Send it out. Like it's good. It's finished. Off we go.
So there was a big shift, I guess, as a kid, to be reading Jack Kirby, Chick Stone, Fantastic Four, your classic sort of stuff, and then the very next day picking up even a recent Fantastic Four. I was sort of going, who the hell are these characters? They had like Medusa and Crystal and Wyatt Wingfoot. Or I'm just going like, I just want the stretchy guy. I want the hot guy, the invisible girl, and the rock guy. Is that too much to ask, Marvel?
Look, I don't think so, because like I myself, as a young person, I always had a bit of a chuckle at Wyatt Wingfoot. Like in wondering what exactly was going on with that guy. So, Matt, now you the fires, it's burning, and
I haven't sworn yet, have I? I said poo.
Oh no! Look, I'll probably swear before you do, man. It's just overexcitement here from me tonight, because So I'm trying hard too. I'm checking. Don't worry about that, because otherwise I like just cutting sick.
Like swear, just say Wyatt Wingfoot.
There we go. And suddenly his books will go up in value tomorrow, mate. It's a Wyatt Wingfoot book. Try and say that quickly. I don't know how I did that. There we go. Hey, so right, you meet Tad. You meet Tad.
Yes.
And you've been drawing. You've seen he said he's going to do it, so he does it.
Yep.
And did that make you think at that point, like, wow, okay, the dude did it? You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely, yeah. I was because no one had ever. I don't think anyone had done that in decades. So I'm only like 13 or 14. So for me, it's like it's never been done in my life. Having said that, I think someone will say, "Oh, actually, in 1971." But to my knowledge, that was my first-hand experience of of crossing that, or at least seeing behind the curtain. I'm a entrenched audience member enjoying comics, and suddenly there's this weird kind of like, oh my god, you can actually do them as well. Then I guess Tad, I think he met Gary somehow. And Gary was a commercial artist in town, and he took me in to meet Gary. And that's how I met Gary. And Dave, I think we met Dave in another meeting. It was kind of like over a period of a couple of months, it was like there was this gradual awakening of a whole lot of comic fans in Sydney, and no doubt in other states as well. And I don't know, it's like everyone suddenly decided, and maybe the Dark Nebula book was the catalyst. Maybe people decided, yeah, let's do it, because I think inside a lot of comic fans is probably, they want to be comic creators themselves.
I would 100% agree with that, mate. Yes. Yeah, that's cool. I like the origins of that, man. Like, just for like-minded, creators getting together and then sort of going off on this, journey, like the seed, start sprouting and stuff. It's did you have dedicated comic book shops at that particular point in time in Sydney where you could go and hang out, like and pick up,
I
whatever they were doing?
know the first one I became aware of was, I think, King's Comics, or no. In the I think it must have been the late 70s. Steve Smith opened a shop in Bondi Junction, because I remember because I lived miles away, and I used to just take like trains and buses and walk to get to his comic shop. And that was great, because prior to that, you would have to go to news agencies, which in itself was kind of fun, and secondhand bookshops, which was good, because after a while you just it was like a route that you would take at Sydney, and you would just work your way around and do the 8 shops or whatever. And every now and then, like the greatest moment of my teenage years was this one weekend day when I went into this secondhand shop. It was either Pitt Street or Castlereagh Street, but normally they didn't have very much. They just had like 2 or 3 crappy comics with the covers coming off. Just a box. Someone had just sold this mint collection. I don't know why. Maybe their mum took it in or whatever. It was just full of like entire runs of Avengers and Daredevil and X-Men, and it was just like I almost died. And the owner was just picking one up with a big squeaky black texter, because that's what they did, to write 5 cents, 5 cents. I was going, no!
Yeah.
And I only had like, I don't know how much money I had. It might have been like $5. Back then, of course, $5 was the equivalent of $50,000. But I had $5, and I have just got to see if I can get any more money somehow. And I couldn't, because it was Saturday, and I don't think they had auto teller machines or whatever. I think I just had to live with the fact that I could only buy $5 worth, which was still like big. And the stuff was just, but what was so sad was waving goodbye to just so much. Like there's runs of Neil Adams, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and the condition was perfect. And it was like one of those moments I thought, I bet you this never ever happens to me again. This is it. This is the, it's all downhill from here. Yeah.
That was the treasure chest, you reckon?
Yeah, that was my El Dorado moment.
Yeah. Fair enough. Hey, what was how long did it take you to go through that box? I'm assuming it would have taken you quite a while to.
Well, considering that
terms with the selections that you were going to make,
in my heightened state of excitement, I was like the Flash. I was like, and you sort of like, I should have just. I mean, if I had the money, I would have just said to the guy, "How much for the whole friggin' box?" But I didn't. And of course, like the next time I came back, I came back, I think Monday, or as soon as I could. Probably couldn't come back Monday because of school. I don't know how. But anyway, next time I came back, of course, gone. I should have asked him to put it behind the desk. It's too late now.
No, man. How long you been carrying that around for? Let it go, Glenn. Let it go, man. Long. Hey, I had book exchanges. I don't know if like younger people today, there's not many book exchanges around, but they were unbelievable places.
I loved them.
Treasures, man.
Treasure troves, weren't they? You'd just walk in, and even if they were badly sort of curated and stuff, it's just like getting hit with a wall of pulpy paperback cheapo goodness. It's like James Bond and just James Bond knockoffs and cowboys and detectives and all those beautiful painted covers.
Man,
paperbacks and,
overwhelming to the senses, man. Like
my grandma, like commando comics somewhere like that high.
My grandma, right, on Thursdays when I was a kid, when I was on school holidays, it used to be like pension day and stuff. So, they'd have the routine at grandma's house. And Thursdays, pension day, they'd go shop and, like in the Woolies, do the round trip, So in school holidays, she used to take me to this little book exchange, and it was in Shaw's Arcade, and it was called Jim's Book Exchange. And Grandma had a hankering, man, for Catherine Cookson books. Like, she loved romance novels. She'd sit there all night reading these, period piece things. Like,
Are they the ones with the chick on the cover is running away from the castle in a negligee?
Yeah. Like, oh man, and some of those images still stick with me. Like the woman, like throwing the bouquet of flowers over her shoulder, and the dude under the tree with his head hanging and stuff. Like your heart.
The hero was always sort of like this very brooding kind of, dark hair, where you're kind of like very serious, contemplating manly, serious things.
Oh, I know, like just the sheer contemplation, man, that must have gone into those torrid moments, like that they took.
Have you read any of those books? Because I used to take the piss out of them, and I was at school, and someone said to me, "Have you even read any of them?" I went, "Nope." So I thought, bugger it. So I went out and bought a few, and I would sort of like be sitting on the train with my bodice ripper romance novel. Never thinking about people looking at him going like, "Hey, yeah." I never would have been gothic romance.
Man,
but it's good for you because
over time, I'll be honest, I did, like open up a few of the covers and have a read, to see what my grandma, like was raving about, because it's like there was stacks of these things. But on on school holiday Thursdays, she used to take me in. I used to go in, little fella sort of thing, and used to go to this book exchange. Dead set, you talking about, you see in that box, just back into like 10-year-old Leigh. And it's like, walked into this little shop, man. It was tiny to the point where, like if you bent over to look at something and someone was standing next to you, it was like, excuse me, like, and it was like, like it was full of like, you got to be athletic, man. My grandma, I swear, used to hang off like rafters and shit to get the books and books, man. It's like, man, she just shimmying, man. She see a Catherine Cookson book shining in that corner, man. Bang, she gone, man. Like, grandma. But anyway, and I've gone in there, dude, and like, ho hum, kicking stones and shit, and walked in there, and oh mate, there's these boxes, like OMO boxes you get in the supermarket with these comic books all stacked up, and it was like, whoa, what is this? Because Dad used to collect them, and I was just sort of starting to find my way, like into what titles I like. And Grandma used to give me like $5, like buy yourself an ice cream or a strawberry yogurt or something, like, so Leigh was like bored, like eating all the strawberry yogurt and shit. And then I found comic books, man. Stripped that strawberry yogurt straight off me. I was going through this stuff, man. There were like old X-Men comics, like the same Avengers. I remember standing there for hours, man, in deep contemplation what I was going to get, because like, that was an amazing moment, man, and then every Thursday I'd just ride my push bike in and raid them.
I mean, obviously this doesn't happen to everyone who is exposed to comics, but people who, like you and me, you just know you're gone for life. It's like, I love this medium, and it's kind of insane because it's a medium that is treated by the general public with disdain, or a lot of people, and yet it is such a complex art form because it combines so many disciplines. It's like, it's writing, it's storyboarding, it's penciling, it's inking, it's lighting, it's doing it's like if you did a movie and the credits were all you. That is, I mean, you can obviously work with other people as well, but I mean, with comics, if you're doing it by yourself, it is the equivalent of, those credits at the end of movies that go on for like 5 minutes, and it's just saying your name. And it is, and the thing is, you can ruin your comic by just being weak on any of those disciplines. I mean, like if you're a great penciler, and your inking is terrible, you'll end up with a bad-looking comic. If your lettering is bad, or you just don't know where to place word balloons, no one's going to read your comic because it's too off-putting. If your coloring's bad, it's like there are so many areas where you can fail, but it's still tremendously satisfying to I guess learn or try and master all those disciplines. Because, like, you think, I was saying about the advertising industry, the allure of just doing the one picture.
Yeah.
Well, you're just doing the one picture. That is it. You're not telling a story. Well, I guess, in a way you are, but they'll tell you what story it is. Like, want the person to be drinking Coke and smiling because Coke's good, that's the story. And, but like comics, just the potential for complexity in the storytelling and stuff, and the infinite different ways you can tell it, and trying to find the most effective way, trying to find a fresh way of doing it. It's just such a challenge, and it's such hard work, and you get bugger all money and credit. So it's like, why? It's because it's that feeling you had when you walked into the secondhand shop and you saw the box, and it's just like, I love you, I'll be mine forever.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. It's totally it, man. It's totally it. I think you've said that pretty much like succinctly is, like the definitive answer for me, because people have asked me, friends and stuff, and I can't explain. Much like yourself, it's just that memory of like seeing there and being blown away, and
maybe it's because like, everyone, well, just about everyone loves movies and stuff, yet not everyone loves comics. But for me, comics are a different experience to movies, although they have similarities. But comics, it's like, if the comic is really effective, I reckon it has characters that are sort of generic enough. This is why people like John Romita and Jack Kirby I found so effective. The characters are generic enough for you to sort of become the character, but then once you're in Peter Parker's skin, you're in this world with buildings and skyscrapers and people, cars, and it's Tintin's really good for that, in terms of like, you couldn't have a more bland looking hero for you to become. It's a bit like what's that Avatar movie? I was going to say, what's the movie about the Avatar? Avatar. The Avatar, it's like Avatar, where you just slide into Tintin's skin. Excuse me, Tintin. This won't hurt, I promise. But the world that Hergé created is really realistic. Like the cars and the buildings and then everything. It looks, so you've got this weird contrast of very simplistic characters, which you can pretend to be. Because I actually find, because I used to try and do characters that were more photorealistic, thinking I was being really clever because they're not doing this, and now I know why they weren't doing this, because it's so. Away with it for a few fringe characters like Paul Galassi in Master of Kung Fu in the 70s. Yeah. He had characters that occasionally would look like Sean Connery or Marlon Brando or whatever. But I think if you do that, like if you make Captain America look like Chris Evans or whatever his name is, it's harder to get into the character because you just look at him going, well, that's not me, that's Chris Evans. Whereas if he's just generic man with the Captain America uniform, then you can immerse yourself in the adventure. And so comics are a very immersive experience. It doesn't matter whether it's Mickey Mouse or whatever. It's the mechanics of how they work, and they give you a unique sort of experience. And that's what I personally sort of get out of it, I think.
Yeah, well, when I was younger, you're 100% right with the comics that Dad was reading, because Dad collected all the Amazing Spider-Man, early Uncanny X-Men. So I got, from a very young age, brought up having these comic books to read while I was eating my cereal. You know what I mean? Like I'd go to Boxes and just grab wads, plonk them down, and sit there and go through.
I just ask what cereal?
Look, at the time, man, I'm not really sure. Probably Cocoa Puffs, you know, something that was probably unhealthy and things. Probably some toast. I seem to remember, you know, a lot of eggs being thrown around and stuff at that stage, man. You know, like before school. But I always got the comics in. So, you know, next time I speak to you, I'll talk to my mother and have a proper list of what I was raised on for breakfast and comics. So.
When I was growing up, when I was little in the 60s, Kellogg's were just were kind of like doing what comics were doing. And they had these, hang on a sec, this is little Peppy. Comics, they all had their little icons like Cocoa Pops and Honey Smacks. And I remember I lived in a cul-de-sac, and all the kids, we'd all get together and we'd be the Cocoa Pops monkey, and you'd be Tony the Tiger from Sugar Frosties, and we would play games like that. And I was just thinking that's the comic serial marketing dudes, taking the lesson from comic books and applying it to their serials and stuff. And it worked brilliantly. Because
I remember little like 4 and 6 panel comic book strips on the back of them too. Yes. Daniel Best has just said, and Gene Colan once told me that every single blonde-haired Marvel character, Captain America, Daredevil, etc., he drew as Robert Redford. Well, there you go.
Yep. Could well be. I mean, I wouldn't have picked that, but I mean, often I think what happens is that maybe you start off with someone in mind, and that's your rough template, and it kind of. Because, I mean, basically, if you really wanted it to be Robert Redford, like, perfectly, that's just going to add so much time to Gene Colan's. Because you've got to find all the reference photos. Whereas the generic Gene Colan face, he just could, spin that around his head, whatever angle he wanted to. And, I mean, Colan he must have been doing 3 monthlies a month. Plus extras. I don't know how they did. Well, I remember reading that he took speed at the end of the 60s. It was the only way he could keep himself awake. And what's interesting too is at the end of the 60s, because everyone's got their breaking point, Colan's quality starts to dip, and he becomes more kind of flourish. It's a flourish without the detail, without the substance. Whereas when Colan was at his peak, which would have been, between say 65 and 68-ish, he had the structure in place, but he also had the kinetic movement. He had both things working beautifully, and he would exaggerate. And he'd go for crazy worm eye, bird's eye views and stuff, and he'd distort things, but they all were recognizably, they were consistent. Like if you do a worm's eye view, we've all seen worm's eye view camera photos. And so how, if the head's really that big, sort of how little the feet should be. And you've got to have that fidelity. Yeah. And Colan started to get sloppy with that. And so it would be like one bit would look like it was a fisheye lens, and then halfway through the picture it would just look like a normal lens, and then it'd be like, just like mishy-mashy, like pick one lens, but don't try and do 3 or 4 in a row. But and also his movement would just be like, it'd be too swishy. It would just be like, I've seen panels of his, I don't know how the inker inked them. It would be like a swoosh mark, a bit of a starburst, something that looks like a couple of rocks maybe, and and you're going, if I was Joe Sinnott, I'd be just going, nope. Gene, do you want to give me a clue?
Yeah. Well, you'd have to have an air of confidence about you if you were inking his work, because I've admired his stuff as well. I've often wondered like how There's a particular image that always strikes me by Gene Colan, and it's an image of the Flash. Wide shot, and he's running as I'm the panel, and he's running that way, and it's a cityscape, like, you know, street scene. And the movement, he's got the outlines of him in going through that flash force thing, you know, like that zips around like a rainbow. And you could tell just from his pencils, he'd had it like real sharp and on it, you know, like, and just been whooshing this stuff. And I thought, like, man, how would you do that as an inker? You'd have to brush it, but then you'd have to get the right, you know, like, just so many questions, man, that, you know, like, you'd go nuts, man, I reckon, if you ink that by the end of the day. What?
Ink is, to my mind, the more I've got into comics and tried to learn the craft, inkers are the absolute unsung heroes of the whole process, you know, because pencil gets rubbed out and ink is what you're left with. And an inker has to do more than just trace, you know. A good inker has to describe form and create texture and create the illusion of depth, and has to be able to interpret things. Like, for instance, with pencils, you can get away with murder. You know, you can have pencils that look quite tight, but there's actually lots of graphite. There's lots of greys, which is all information, and you're reading that information, going, "Oh, there's a lot of detail in that." But, you know, I've done this myself when back in the days when I just thought inking was basically tracing. Is that, you know, you would go over the, you know, what you think is the right pencil lines and over all the graphite-y interesting bits, and you rub it out, and suddenly it just looks so lifeless and disappointing. So all that graphite-y kind of texture, that's gone, you know. And then you find that you know, the eyes on the face, you've inked kind of like on the outside of the pencil line on one eye and on the inside of the pencil, and it's really subtle. But when it's just the ink, when you've committed to that line, and that is the only line on that face, it looks terrible. You just think, oh my God, you just want to adjust those. And that's where, again, seasoned inkers know what line to pick and what line to ignore. And that is keeping in mind, again, that what they end up doing is what gets printed, what gets seen. And so, you know, those great inkers like Joe Sinnott, Tom Palmer, Chick Stone, they were fantastic. And then you go further back, people like Leonard Starr and Alex Raymond, their inking is phenomenal. I mean, like, Alex Raymond can just ink a shirt and you can tell what the shirt's made of. You can go, that's one of those blousy kind of shirts, or that's made out of, it's more like an army shirt. It's or that's like almost made out of that theatrical curtain drapery. It's, you know, you can just tell by the way the folds just go like a waterfall, or the lines all fluffy because it's the material's all light. And he's a magician. It's a White Wingard. What's his name? Wingfoot. Yeah.
White Wingard. Wingfoot. That's it.
Not his name.
That's all right, man. I think I've blown the no swearing thing out, getting too excited about grandma before, you know, shimmying. So let's not worry about that.
But what was I saying? Oh yeah, I was just saying, yeah, Alex Raymond. He's a magician in inks. And the thing is, I don't think I've even seen his pencil work because he rubbed it all out. So, you know, in some ways it's like, I mean, obviously penciling is important and part of you shouldn't denigrate any parts of the process, but penciling is like, you know, if you're constructing a house and you have a blueprint or you have the metal frame that gets put up, and that's got to be rock solid. Everything's got to be right. But then when they come along and they finish the house, that's what people see. And they come along and they go, that's a beautiful house. And they go, it's a bit ugly. And that is what got put on top of that framework. And that's what inker's job is.
Did you find that your attraction to your appreciation of the art of inking was from getting into black and white books and comic books, because I know the early Marvel stuff, for me anyway, you never really saw the inking as a young person. I sort of saw it together. I couldn't differentiate that, like an inker would bring his own style to like John Romita and stuff. So I saw that as John Romita,
Yeah.
And then there were the colors, the real pop, bright colors and stuff. So a little bit of inking gets lost, I think, anyway, when I was younger. But then for me personally, I came across like 2000 AD.
Yeah.
And Cyclone comics and stuff, and I started like processing, like, hey, like this inking thing, like, you do. And I've since had the conversation with people, man, that the reason I like black and white, again, not saying anything wrong with color or anything that anyone does, like this is just me talking. Whatever makes you happy, man, in your art form and you create. That's all that I'm cool with. So, all for you. But when it comes to like, man, inking, when you get to that page, and it's you and, what you put on there, you can't take it off. I love that thrill, man, like of knowing you can kill a page, man, like one stray thought, like, one anything, hey, and it's like just wood. Oh no, and there's a power in that too,
Yeah.
Those inkers, man, were pretty amazing. And then I guess what I'm sort of getting to with that is, did you ever let anyone else ink your pencils in the day? And now in your later career, I noticed that you handle everything like pencils and inks and all that. Was this, was this concept that you're at formulated from what you saw in other pencilers that you found, were attractive and not so much?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had other people ink my stuff, and I guess there's just nothing like doing it yourself. And the thing is, I guess it's good to experience both sides of the coin, and not everyone's going to come to the same conclusion that that I did, but after quite a long time of sort of not inking my own stuff, I just thought, no, it's time for me to do this. And then I realised that how crucial inking was, and how much I had to learn. Well, you're not going to learn it if you don't do it. If you keep on handballing it over to someone else. So that's how I ended up sort of like doing that.
Yeah. You I like going back to like, and I think it's something you incorporate with your new, like with your Phantom stuff at the moment. But when we were talking earlier about how those characters could create an every man or every woman that the reader would be invested in as a character and feel a part of that character. I strongly agree with you there, because when I was younger, there was nothing better than, you'd go to school, you do your sport, have your dinner and stuff, and I liked my TV, but there were also times where it was like, man, I was happy to spend an afternoon or something just chilling, like reading comic books, man, because you wanted to know what happened to Peter Parker. You wanted to know like about like the tortured villains, because as the serialization went on longer and longer, you ended up thinking about these things regularly in your mind, and talking about it with other kids in school and stuff, and I think, I guess to a certain extent as well, is that begins the storytelling primer, I guess, when you're younger, because it's like you are creating pathways off these characters, and then, suddenly you're off sketching your own and drawing your own, and then drawing with people, and, like doing art classes, even though you may not be into art, but because you want that little, like bit, because you gravitate towards it and stuff. Like, comics back in the day were beautiful, man. I don't tend to read a lot of international comics these days. Probably my primary, I guess, reading is Australian comic books. So I get a lot out of that. But I find I do miss that. I guess much like my grandmother loved in her Catherine Cookson novels, I loved in the comic books of the time, man, like, because you got to remember back too, like there were times when no one knew who Wolverine was, mate, so you had that whole mystery and stuff of the storytelling thing. And Daniel Best telling me to keep my pants on. Hang on, mate. I can't help but get excited, Daniel. Good Lord. Now, while Glenn's gone for a kick. No, you're right, bud. I'm going to do something quickly. Don't forget to like and subscribe the channels, all right? Because, they help the algorithms and stuff. Friday night drinking draw is on again at 8 o'clock this week, and it's the Wild West. So if you want to do some artwork, get your artwork into the website that'll pop up at some point later in the show, and check out the comic shop, okay? All right, so one of my mates, Ben Sullivan, who is a hell of an artist. Glenn, what kind of tools do you use, mate? Pens, brush? What's your weaponry?
So I just draw on my monitor. So I do everything digitally.
Yep. How long have you been doing that for?
At least 10 years.
Yeah.
And before that, I was, when you had those little tablets down here, and you'd be looking up there and drawing down there. And it's funny, you get used to doing that to the point where when you finally get the monitor that you can draw on, which is a lot more like drawing on a piece of paper, it's really difficult. You keep on wanting to look. It's like it's like learning all over again how to just draw on a frigging piece of paper.
Yeah. Do you have do you have a studio or a space that you like, mate, that gives you your creative ebbs and flows and things where you like to go, like to be positive?
Well, we have a house which is fairly simple. It doesn't have many rooms, and the main room is sort of like the kitchen, living room, and I'm just in the corner of it now. And so the good thing about this is that I tend to always want to draw or be at the computer. And if I had a studio down the hallway, I'd never see my wife.
Yeah.
But at least here, and often what will happen is that if I'm just kind of mucking about, not drawing seriously, and she's watching something on telly, and it looks interesting, I can sort of like go and join her, or I can sort of half watch it, or I've half watched a hell of a lot of Netflix series.
Yeah.
So it's just a nice setup. I do enjoy, because we used to share a studio with lots of different artists back in South Australia, and that was great fun. But change is good, and now I really like drawing on my own. I just I wouldn't like to share a studio again. But you change. I guess sometimes you just get sick of being by yourself. But I remember when I was drawing with all the other guys in the studio, and all the other guys, everyone was really funny. And so you'd go through these, like you'd start off drawing, and everyone would be in their own little part, their corners of the room, and everyone would be chattering away, and be telling funny jokes, and we'd be pissing ourselves laughing. And then at some stage, I think your brain waves must change. You would just go into this deep silence for, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours or whatever, where you could hear a pin drop. And then you'd come out of it again, and people start talking again. And it was just, you're just going like, oh, I think we got some stuff done then. But the thing is, that stuff done whether you're chatting or not. I think it's just a different sort of stuff. And maybe it's the intense detail or something that you do when you're just in that zone where you're not talking and you've blocked everything out. And then maybe you just like if you've got to do a whole brick wall or whatever, and you can chat away and laugh and make jokes and stuff. One thing that was good about working with other people was that if you were working on a really complicated bloody drawing that was taking you forever, you can spend like 10 hours drawing it. And at the end of the day, you're going, have I progressed at all? Because you can't tell. And so it's really good to just sort of go, rod or back, and you go, and they go, oh, yeah, you've done stacks. So, oh, good. Thank God, because it's like, sometimes you just think, this thing is never going to friggin' end.
Yeah.
And the comics are the same as well, especially sequential comics. It's just like you go, I'm always saying this to Carly, my wife, I'm going like, this is it, 3 weeks, and this will be done. And 3 months. It's like, no. 3 years.
I'm just laughing because I know exactly that in my mind. I'll have this done by the end of June, and we're nearly at the end of June.
And it just, you lose all credibility. No.
What do you do, man? It's like you would have. I'm going to assume from what you spoke about earlier, though, going through like the grind of monthlies and all that, you would have found your happy medium and balance with your output of your art, though obviously at this time, I would assume.
Now, yes. I mean, I wish I was faster, but on the other hand, I really think I am better now, and it's not so much that I get things right straight away. In fact, I'm the opposite. I actually work kind of in reverse, and that I draw a terrible piece, and then I try to remove the wrong bits. And so in the end, by the time I finish the drawing, I've probably drawn it 4 times, maybe more. Just like, drawing a hand 6 times until you go, that's the hand, that's the one. And heaven help you if you're drawing something that you haven't drawn before, or you haven't drawn that often, like elephants or giraffes or something. That's like, why? But the thing is, you do it because you haven't done it before, and you want to know how to draw a giraffe. It's good. But so I guess getting back to your question, I am sort of philosophical about my speed or lack of, and I really just focus more on, I just want to be happy with the drawing, because to me that's always been my biggest bugbear, is that all through the 90s, I never produced anything that wasn't rushed at the end. It started off great and then just turned into crap by the end. And so you make the deadline, or even if you're usually late for the deadline, all you've got to show for it is a comic that you don't want to look at yourself because you're not proud of it. You don't want to show it to anyone. You don't want to say, oh, this is what I'm like, because what you actually want to say is like, no, I'm not like this. I'm better than this. So now I would rather take the extra time and do something that I can look at and go, I'm happy with that. I'm glad I did that. I'm proud of it. And like even if in a few years' time I look back at it and I go, actually, that hand's a bit wonky or whatever. But on the plus side, I do think that now I'm doing stuff at a basic standard that, even if it's not, in 3 years' time I can see something wrong with it, I still can tell myself, no, it's still of a acceptable standard. It hasn't dropped below that. Whereas in the 90s, I could not say that at all whatsoever.
When you sort of started getting into the American market in the 90s, what was it like for you then, being a young fella out of Australia, like in Cyclone and getting your opportunity? Like,
I was
things were pumping.
Totally out of my depth, and just so scared and unconfident, and when you're like that, I find you're not yourself. You're kind of a bit of a jerk, or you just say dumb things, and you go, why did I say that? That's not me. I don't know. But it's just because you are so uncomfortable. And yeah, that's how it was. And I just say, I mean, like, I met some great people who I still know today. I'm Facebook friends with, like, all the dudes at Malibu Comics. They're just fantastic. So if you want a sweet entree, you could not have a sweeter entree into American comic scene than via these guys, because all the nightmares you have of tough New York guys going, "What the hell do you want? Get out of my face!" These guys were in Malibu in California. They were the total opposite. They were just sweethearts, and that was so nice. And then when we did go to New York, that's when I met the "get out of my face." But even over there were some nice dudes. But it was like, another thing I didn't like about it is a lot of it wasn't about comics. A lot of it was about climbing the greasy pole and, I don't know, sort of jumping from company to company, or if there's a dinner you're invited to, it's like, sort of, who's at the table? Is it, oh, it's Sergio Aragonés. Oh, yeah. And he doesn't want to talk to me. It's like, I don't know. So it's just, I just find it's not authentic. It's really contrived, and I find it makes me cringe. Because I like talking to people one-on-one, like what we're doing now. That's beautiful. But you find you go to a convention or something and you've got like 50 people all trying to talk to you at once. You have to split your attention into 50, and you can't. And then, you just, you can't be yourself. You can't have a decent conversation. And, some people want to talk to you, other people don't, or they just want to sort of like schmooze. And, so, no, it's not my cup of tea at all.
Not your cup of tea. So from that, Dave Dye just had a question. He would like to know if you have written any comic books.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, well, not entire comic books, I don't think, but I've written comic stories. Yep. And I love writing, and I've always loved writing. That was when I was at school. My big strengths were both like English, creative writing, and art and stuff. I was sort of like sort of a humanities type of person. Also, I love history as well, and that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, I've always been a big writer. I used to write plays, and in the early Cyclone days, my comics were sort of like, they were dropping in my list of priorities, and really theatre and film and TV were more important for me. And so I, during those early Cyclone days and stuff, a lot of the time I wasn't really taking it that seriously or giving its due attention. And I still remember being at conventions and stuff, and meeting people like Will Eisner and stuff, and not really paying attention. Because I remember this time I'd done a poster in the Cyclone which had the spirit in it, and Will Eisner signed it for me to Glenn. Don't worry, I won't sue you. Ha ha ha, for using my character. Will Eisner. And I think I gave it away about like 20 seconds later to someone. I said, "Oh, yeah, have a comment." And later on, Gary's going, "Oh, Tad, what about Dave? Where's that Will Eisner signed one?" I went, "I don't know." Gave it to some guy. They're going, "What?" But yeah, it was. I don't know. It wasn't. I didn't. I treated it with basically like a fool.
Still would have been an amazing time for a young fella, though. Did you find that you just weren't? I guess at that point, like even with the Will Eisner thing, you just weren't in the moment. I guess at that stage, it was just so much happening. Like, oh, thank you. Like here you go. Well,
I reckon I was an arrogant dick. I just reckon it's like I was a really top student at school, and won some scholarships, and sort of left school and thought, shall I be a great playwright, or shall I direct films, or and I mean, like, I wish I had a bit more of that confidence now, but I'm glad I lost the arrogance. But I just thought the shit didn't stink, and that really held me back artistically, because so I rapidly fell away from being like, best drawer at school to absolutely crap drawer in the real world. And I didn't even realize it. It took quite a while before I could look at my stuff through proper eyes, and I still find today when I look at my work, you need to have two sets of glasses or two hats, or whatever you want to call it. You've got the eyes of the creator and the eyes of the consumer. And you need to be able to, obviously when you're creating, you've got your creative glasses on or whatever. Then you've got to be able to walk away, not look at it for half an hour, come back and just look at it like this is the first time you've ever seen this drawing. You don't know who did it. It's just like, and you look at it and you just go, I can't tell what's happening. And then you put your creator glasses back on and you have to absolutely acknowledge what consumer Glenn just said, because that's what every frigging consumer is going to say if you don't change the drawing, But that's when you're like 18 and you think shit doesn't stink, you don't have that sort of objectivity. You just think, well, what is really a weird double think is that you can draw stuff that is poor quality and you can ink it badly and still think it's better than a professional comic book that you see in the comic shop who just happens to be done by an artist you're not keen on. So like, for instance, just say it was like Jack Kirby in the mid-70s was like losing it, right? And Vince Colletta is a terrible inker. So you get them two combined and I just look at it and just go, this is shit. And yet it was still so much better. Vince Colletta's inks were better than what my disasters were. But no, could not see it. No way. Because, you've got these creator, almost blinkers on, which just refuse to let you see the truth. It's like you can't handle the truth. So it is good to be able to finally, get over that and realise that consumer Glenn is helping creative Glenn. He's not embarrassing him or criticising him or whatever. He's helping him. He's helping Glenn do a good drawing by telling him all those heads are 10% too big. So shrink it down, and and we all win.
Yep. When did oh, here we go. I'll come back to my question, but for Stephen the Cloud, g'day. Has Glenn ever drawn Judge Dredd, either for 2000 AD or a commission?
No, I haven't. No.
Ah, well, there you go. There you go indeed. That'd be an interesting one, man. And Glenn, did you meet the Remeters? Name drop, mate. Eisner, nice. Wally Wood.
So when we're talking about meeting people, like I want to define meeting because I've heard lots of people sort of going, well, because there was Stan Lee and then I turned and I believe it was Will Eisner. And what they mean is that in a room of like 50,000 people where Stan Lee is there expressly to shake everyone's hand and go, Excelsior, Excelsior, shaking his hand and getting Excelsior does not mean that you've met Stan Lee or that he's your best mate or that he would remember. I think the rule has to be, if you meet them again later on, they have to remember meeting you, otherwise it doesn't count. And if they know your name, or at least they go, oh, you're that Australian guy, that's okay as well. That will go towards you having officially met someone. So John Romita, I have met him in person once at a convention, but I don't think I said anything more than, oh. And I have spoken to him on the phone when we were doing The Phantom. He was the art director at Marvel, and there was a big change they wanted done to a double-page spread. And they were going to get someone in the art department to do it. And I rang the art department and went, John Romita, you don't know me, my name's Glenn, and I'm doing The Phantom. Can you please do that art correction? And he went, oh, all the guys working with me, they're really good. And I went, can you please do it? And I don't know if he did. He said he was going to, but I don't know. But even then, after that conversation, I don't know if he would have remembered me. I mean, like these guys, first of all, I mean, obviously John Romita's dead now, but the thing is, back then they were like in their 70s or whatever. They've been drawing for 50 years. They have met a squillion people. The people they're going to remember are going to be their contemporaries, like, Will Eisner and, the old dudes, they'll be, and they do, sort of like, even if you manage to collar one of them and you're having a polite chat and they go, oh, that's nice to meet you. And they'll be going, hi, Wally, or hi, Neil or whatever. And, it's almost like you want to go be with Neil or Wally or whatever. That's, be free. I set you free.
Yeah. Oh, it's still nice to have these stories, though, you can tell, man, like of these dudes, these legends and stuff, But
Yeah.
when did Consumer Glenn start? How far along the line were you when Consumer Glenn started working with you and you started listening to it, like?
Right. Well, I reckon I started to seriously listen to it when I, just at the tail end of my comics career in the 90s, and I was starting to work for advertising firms, and they were bastards. They were like tough, and they actually made the New York comic dudes look kind of okay, and they would not hesitate to tell you that this was shit. So it'd just be like, do it again, and there's absolutely no point after a while in getting upset or getting offended. And because in the end, it's just really immature and unprofessional. It's like, like the dudes getting the illustration done in the advertising thing, they're not comic fans or anything. They produce baby food or dog food or whatever, it's like they just want a drawing of a dog or whatever that looks like a dog. And if you do one that doesn't look like a dog, the first thing they're going to say is, it doesn't look like a dog. That's terrible. Who the hell drew this? And then you get the agent going, saying it doesn't look like a dog. And I can't sort of go, I'm so hurt. It does look like a dog. It does. It's wrong. It's like, you can't do that. You've got to just swallow it. And the thing is, if the end result is you end up being able to draw a dog properly, they have done you a massive favour. And that's where my mind started to go, work long. Oh, this is actually good. To confront your imperfections, not feel personally affronted by it, because it's like, it's a drawing. It's not you. It doesn't mean that you're a head. It's just you. The drawing, the head's too big. Change the head. Don't have a huge argument about it or have a hissy fit. And that's what I like when I would have other artists coming to me, sort of newer artists coming asking for advice. That's one of the first things I'd try and say to them, is that you are not the drawing, and you're going to be better by your 100th drawing than you are now. So let's get to drawing 100 as quickly as possible and try to learn as much in those 100 drawings. And when people who you respect tell you the head's too big, just change the goddamn head. Don't try and have a frigging argument about how, that's the way I draw heads. I've heard it all. It's like, no one draws heads like the dude or whatever. It's like,
yeah. So I guess what you're sort of suggesting there is take lessons, take your licks, and slowly lose that ego. I guess.
You can find a good teacher or mentor or whatever you want to call it. It will be someone who is not a nasty, one of those old school kind of footy coaches. Someone who's nurturing and kind and supportive, because that's, I know personally, that's the way I learn the best. And I know that from school, because I went to this really strict private all boys school, which were they actually ended up having a royal commission on them over. They had a pedophile ring of teachers in there, and they were there were sadists. I tell you, this is back in the 70s. There were dudes that were dead set sadists, and they would terrify kids. They'd have kids pissing their pants and stuff, and they'd laugh. You weird, you're pissing your pants. And but then like I had one or two teachers who were just like the best teachers in the world, and they were these nurturing, like geniuses who just knew how to bring everything out of you. It's almost like you didn't even feel they were teaching you anything because it was all your idea somehow. They would just know they just prod you in the right direction, and they'd know but it was just, it taught me a lot about the difference between a good teacher and a bad teacher.
Yeah.
And definitely nurturing and, respect and all that sort of stuff. But being honest too, not blowing smoke up people's ass, because that doesn't get you anywhere. And again, you're doing a disservice to the person who will then draw the bad dog and be told by the dog food owner, you're sacked or whatever. So you're not doing, it's a lose-lose.
Yeah. Oh, I like your way of learning too, mate. I find that works with me as well. Like you, all boys school, you remember the teachers who were good and did nurture all that stuff in you, but then there were some, they didn't have us peeing our pants, but, if your sock was down, you had to go and run 10 laps, go and do a 4K run. And, like ties and, collared shirts and stuff, like in leather shoes, So, you learnt your lesson to put your sock up, or don't forget your garters the next day.
We had, because you would have to attend the rugby games, we would have rehearsals, like the whole school in the hall, where we had to clap a certain way. Like we couldn't clap in unison and stuff. We had to make sure it didn't fall into a chant or anything. We weren't allowed to, there were only a certain number of things we could say, and they all had to be these sort of like piss weak. It's like something out of Billy Bunter from the 1920s, like hurrah, Tiggers, and war cries, which were like just like these songs of like hiss boom ba rah 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 do 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 do, and it was just so. It was like 1984. The level of mind control that they wanted to exert over these kids was just, and it was all about just crushing your spirit and crushing your individuality, and so that in turn you would leave school and you would become a doctor and a lawyer and a judge and a gynecologist or whatever, and then have kids in the North Shore who would then go back to the school to do you'd all be liberal voters, you'd all be massively conservative, and it was just this. It was a conservative sausage making machine, which was a loop. Like the sausages sort of go out one end and come back in the other, and it was just, it was shocking. I don't know how I survived that.
Yeah, I don't know how you did either. I do remember the chanting though, and if you were that one kid that, had no interest in sport whatsoever and just wanted to read a book and you didn't stand up during, some person winning some event, you know what I mean? Like, you're on detention tomorrow. I totally understand that. It's and that chanting, man, that was weird. Hey, how everyone would go up in unison if they won, and the other like 3 or 4 colours would sit down like, oh no, we suck, It
was the complete opposite of being authentic. It was just this contrived. It was all about appearances, basically. It was just like, you're representing the school. We do not do this. We do not do that. We are better than that. And
well, I am here. There you go. That's all right.
I'm just saying, this is probably why I came out of school an arrogant prick. And the best thing I ever did was I just, one day, like I was working at Channel 9, and one day something shifted in my soul or whatever, and I just went, I can't do this. I can't live this life. I can't, because you can see where it's leading. And I just basically hopped in the car and drove to Kalgoorlie, and I worked in the gold mines for a couple of years. And it was the best bloody thing I ever did. And I just kind of got over myself, or at least it was the beginning of getting over myself. I mean, I'm still a work in progress, I think, but it was definitely the beginning of becoming a better person. And the advantages of that, I mean, if we can get back to drawing, is that, you do get to that stage where you can overcome your own ego, hopefully, and start to really improve, and also start to be more authentic in your art, and explore. I'm always interested in what makes things tick, including myself. And so when it comes to art and what things instinctively appeal to me, my sense of aesthetics and stuff, I always think, why do I like that? Why is that? Because I'll see the same thing crop up again and again and again in my likes, and I find that intriguing. And so I sort of think, well, I should start incorporating that into my art, because, like, for instance, polka dots. I love polka dots. I've got a feeling it might be because of Little Dot, the Harvey character. Maybe I was, had a sort of held a torch for her, maybe. And polka dots, just love them. So you just think, right, got to make sure that the next Phantom cover has got someone in polka dots.
Yeah. It sounds like you had a shift, mate, like a spiritual shift at one point in your life. There.
Big life-saving one.
Yeah. No, recognise. I totally get where I get now in my life, where I'm at, exactly where you're coming from, mate. Which brings me to your Kalgoorlie stint, where that was just you'd never obviously gold prospected before or anything, or had no interest.
Wasn't a big subject at school.
Yeah.
So I just had to. I just turned up with. I don't think I took any possessions with me. I didn't even have that much money, but I lobbed into Kalgoorlie, and you walk down the main street, and there's lots of little gold mining offices and stuff, and I just kept on walking in, just going, I just got 2 arms and 2 legs, and I will do anything. And I got a job, I think, first day. It's funny, actually, I got a job. There was this guy, little short-looking aggro guy, who I almost bumped into him as he was coming out and I was going in, and he was like, and I go, is there a job open? I went, yep. And I went, that guy? I went, yep. I said, well, whatever he's doing, I'll do it.
What was your first job?
It involved going out to land that hadn't been drilled yet. So it was just out in the middle of nowhere, and they just got the rights to assay, for gold. And you'd be out there. A lot of time I was out there by myself, but you would have a bag of wooden stakes and Hessian bags and a shovel, and you'd go like every, I think, 50 meters. You'd bash a peg in the ground and you'd write the coordinates of the peg, like, north something or other and south or whatever, east, whatever. And then I'd take a little soil sample from 10 meters either side of the peg, and then just walk in a straight line. And you're going through bush and up cliffs and all sorts of stuff. And I don't know how straight my lines were, but because we started off, we had a compass, and then I broke the compass. We were in the middle of nowhere. And so I'm just going, that way, I think. So for all I know, the grid, is probably like, but luck to have it, they struck huge amounts of gold. And I don't know whether that was because of my terrible grid. Maybe I gridded areas they never would have. But because I remember the guy, I was thinking, I'm going to get the sack for this. And I sort of came in one day.
I've lost you a bit there, mate. I'll give you a sec.
Oh, sorry.
Good old Tasmanian internet gets a thumbs up from us over the last couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah, I know. Well, the Gary one, there was a bit of a time lag. I was like, so I did this terrible grid, and I went back to work thinking I'm going to get the sack, and they got all the assay results in, and they were just over the moon. I went, gold everywhere. So that was good. And then I went from there to working on a drilling rig up top, and then I ended up working underground, which was big. But there's a lot of dead time underground because you're waiting. It's like you're waiting for the lift, and then you go down, and then you've got to walk miles to find the stope or the shaft or whatever you're after, and then the alarm will go saying, we're blasting in 20 minutes. You know, fuck. So you've got to walk all the way back. And so I reckon in an 8-hour day, you'd get like half an hour's work done, maybe. But it was interesting. Pretty amazing. Like in some of the really big modern ones, they've got these giant trucks driving underground, like hundreds of meters underground, and these huge drives, they're called, and they're as big as a freeway, or not quite as big as a freeway. They're big, and they're really tall, and you've got to make sure you don't get run over because these trucks will just go, wow, and you're thinking, I just can't believe we're hundreds of meters under the ground. It's really amazing. What they do is they dismantle the trucks, bring them all down and remantle, if there's such a word, and they remantle.
There you go. Really. I like remantle. I'm going to steal that off you, mate, if it doesn't exist. I think that's got some, some space to work with. That's a good one. With that South Australian change, at what point did the hankering for the comic books start?
Well, Kalgoorlie's in WA, West Australia.
Oh, sorry, Western Australia.
Well, what happened was that I came back after about a couple of years, I went via South Australia and really loved it. And then I continued on to Sydney and realised I still hated Sydney. But while I'd been gone, and I'd, again, just been frigging around doing the odd page of Cyclone, but not really seriously doing anything, Jerry and Dave had just gone on to become the most amazing, they were just putting out comics that looked like fully professional, like the Southern Squadron comic. I was like, my God, how have I been away 2 years or 20 years, And I thought, oh yeah, I'll get back into this. And again, consumer Glenn had not arrived on the scene just yet, So I'm going, I'll just jump in because I'm really good still, because I haven't bothered drawing for the last 2 years, but that doesn't matter because I'm great.
I'll be right.
I was just producing shit, and I could not figure out why my stuff looked so poor, and then Gary's stuff looked so wonderful. And I was just like, and the difference is skill and doing lots of it and knowing what you're doing and all these things. But that didn't occur to me at first. It sort of took a while. So that's when I started to get back into the comics. And it was a big learning curve. And it really, to my mind, I don't really like too much of what I did up until about 2015, 2014. Yeah. So it's really just this second career I'm having now, where I feel like when I cark it, I really want that to be my stuff. Maybe a little bit of the other stuff, but this is like
2015 was when you started taking over and doing the Phantom.
Yeah, I think before that though, I did do a sequential piece for a book that Nat Carmichael was doing.
You won an award for that, yeah?
Yeah. That was that zombie Ned Kelly story, which was, in hindsight, it was like, I think the story had to be 5 pages long or whatever, and the story really needed to be about 8 to make sense. So it doesn't make sense. It's not good writing, but I know with a few more pages it would be a perfectly acceptable and comprehensible story. Yeah. But I guess my big triumph there, I felt, was that I was doing artwork of a much higher standard than anything I'd done. So it'd be like I'd walked away from comics. 15 years later, I came back as a much better comic artist. Because I'd been doing all this non-comic stuff, with advertising and stuff that normally you just wouldn't do in comics. And I was, there was a lot of time people saying this isn't good enough, get better. And so, by the time I got around to going back to comics, I felt quite confident that I could do better. And now I look back on that stuff from 2015 and it's like, I know I've improved because I'm looking at it going, not as good as I thought it was, but still, I can live with it. But a lot of the earlier stuff, I just wish we'd get bulldozed into a hole and left to become landfill.
Well, it sounds like all the experiences that you've had primed you up to that 2015 to come in like ready to rock and roll, man. With your second stint, because you would I guess even going to places like Western Australia, seeing the mines, doing all that sort of stuff, and South Australia's and different things. You get lots more visual context. You meet more people. You see more things. It all adds into the artwork.
It's character building, and it knocks the crap out of you. And all those things really help you. Or they help you across the board, but they really help you as an artist, as a creator and stuff as well. Like also, another thing about getting the crap knocked out of you, metaphorically, is that you become more empathetic to other people. So in terms of your story writing, it's a lot easier to put yourself in the shoes of other people. But I guess because you're out of the, you can get yourself out of the way, and I think that leads to better, richer stories. And also another thing that life experience does is it helps you build a big picture of the world, which hopefully is coherent and mature and sort of doesn't contradict itself too much. And so if you have that mindset, then you can write a story about anything. You can write a genre story or whatever, and still have that. The characters can still be believable, and there's a worldliness to the story. It stuff. It all helps.
Yeah, for sure. And the confidence does too, because I would assume with your confidence primed in 2015, it flowed into a aesthetically, as you've said, pleasing for you from a creator's perspective style of work that you've done, hence your pride in this particular period.
Yes, although I still I still lack confidence in a lot of the time, and the more I learn, I just realise there's so much to learn, and I'm never going to learn it all. And there's just some stuff I just look at and I go, I would need another 50 years of life to try and get anywhere near that. And so you've got to just go, oh, well, you just focus on, being the best you, and, maybe next time around you might be able to do that sort of stuff. But, it's like just, I think, being keenly aware that you might know a lot, and you definitely learn better, but there's always more. And so that makes it really interesting and exciting, and a challenge, because it is easy to rest on your laurels, I mean, like some people rest on their laurels like at a really early age, and they just don't get better because it doesn't occur to them they need to get better. But I just think, you can never stop learning.
Yeah. No, that's good, man. I think choice words for anyone out there listening that wants to get better at drawing is like try and draw every day and keep looking, keep learning, keep looking around. Take it from you, if that's advice that you're giving, brilliant advice. Mate, we just had a comment up from Daniel Best. If Sis is out there, I'll get him to put that back up. So Daniel Best asks, is it because you're finally drawing what you want to draw as opposed to working for hire and taking on jobs because you had to?
Yes. That hits the nail on the head. It makes a big difference. Now, to put that in sort of context in terms of an entire career, that is not to say that when you start off, you should be a prima donna who refuses to do anything but your own stuff. I think everyone has to sort of go through that apprenticeship, and some people will spend their entire career drawing other people's stuff, and that's fine. But so it's up to you. But I feel in terms of all the years I've been drawing, I've spent a huge chunk of time working with other people and doing other people's characters and stories and stuff like that, and that's been fine. But that's over. Now it's time for me to do what I want to do, and I'm absolutely loving it. Having a ball, and so that's not to poo-poo the past in any way, because that was fine as well. But now I'm just loving, just exploring what's inside me, and it's like I'm very, very lucky with Glenn Ford at Frew. He just lets me more or less do what I want, which is fantastic. So he's got a lot of faith that I'm not going to just do something outrageous or whatever, which I wouldn't do. But it is really nice for him to just, like occasionally he might just say, "Oh, look, we were thinking the next issue is going to be all army or something." So just go, "Cool, okay." So they're all going to be in battle fatigues or whatever. But that hardly ever happens. Most of the time, it's just he'll go, in this Giantsize, there's Shadow, Catman, Phantom, obviously, and Crimson Comet or whatever. So you try to put all those dudes in the cover. I don't think I even have to put them all on the cover if I don't want. I could just, if there's no room, I'll just run a strip on the bottom saying, also Crimson Comet or whatever. So having that freedom is beautiful. And also, get published is great as well, without having to, not only am I not dipping into my own pocket, but I'm actually getting some payment back. So, I'm very, very appreciative of that.
Mm-hmm. Do you, I think from my perspective anyway, and this is no disrespect to any of the artists that have done it for the last few years, but from my age bracket, I would think that you're probably the definitive Phantom artist at the moment, mate. You can recognize your work a mile away. You don't even have to double check the name. With just something from me, like just being a penciler and an inker, that's something, I guess, similar to what Ben Sullivan was asking before, just purely a self-indulgent question that I want to ask you, man, for my own knowledge and maybe other people's out there as well. Like, we'll have a look at some of your artwork. Actually, Shane, can you chuck up a couple of them, man?
While you're looking at the first one, can I just have a quick wee?
Yeah, man, of course you can. Head off. I'll read through these. Yeah. All right.
I'll be quick.
You're right. Take your time. Don't do what those nuns or brothers made your classmates do, mate. Pee on your pants. All right. So while we're waiting for Glenn, like and subscribe to channels. Helps all the algorithms and stuff like that. So more people can watch the shows and more people can get to check out everything the Comex is all about. Friday Night Drinking Drawer is up to episode 94, on its way to 100. So join Spedsy and Sizzle and Quick Nick and the regulars this Friday at 8 o'clock for the Wild West. Don't forget that this show and Friday Night Drinking Drawer is sponsored by the Comex Studio. Now, in the Comex Studio is the Comex shop. Now, you can see that website there. You can go into that. It's got a flat rate of $9 for 1 or 20 comics. And there are over 100 independent Australian titles in there from varying artists. So if you're interested, just jump on there and check out the catalogs and things like that. So, go and support an Australian comic book creator and help them buy some ink and get those pages slapping and out quick. And no, Daniel, I will not do a dance while we're waiting, mate, because, I never answered your question about pants. So it's probably safer to stay seated. So if anyone else has got any comments, please feel free to put them up and, we'll get Glenn to answer them and stuff. And oh, there you go, Dave Dye. Glenn you won the Stanley Award. You won the Stanley Award for the ACA for the Zombie Ned Kelly comic. Dave Dye's just letting me know, mate. The Stanley.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Now, Ben Sullivan also had a comment while you were away that if Shane can put that up for us. Ben Sullivan, this has been honest, deeply interesting, and really encouraging. Thank you, Leigh and Glenn. No need to thank me, buddy. Thank Glenn for his knowledge and experience, mate, and passing on some tricks for us all, man, because, that's one thing we like to get out of Chinwag, is if you can get at least one little piece of information that helps someone out there, mate, then that makes for an awesome show as far as I'm concerned. Right. So back to my question for you. Now, the artsy-fartsy one, as I like to jokingly call it, mate. There's a particular image, it may be in your images that pop up here, but whenever Shane wants to do it. But you did a double-page spread for the Phantom a few months ago, and there's a beautiful piece, man. Phantom was on the right. There was a lady standing in the corner next to a window. That's not it, but while we're just keep flicking them through, sis. That's cool, man, because it all relates to everything. How long, mate, right there, how long does that take you from the point you conceptualize it in your mind to the point where consumer Glenn says to artistic Glenn, good to go, mate?
Well, I cannot, it's weeks. I know that, but I kind of really lose track of the time because I should actually one day what I've been doing is I haven't written the date that I start on things, but I have been keeping a diary, just a little notepad diary of the stages I go through from the very beginning when I've got a blank canvas to getting the idea, what I then do, and then the bits where I stall, the bits where I find myself procrastinating, and I sort of make a note, go, right, why am I procrastinating? And I found I do this stupid thing where, because I love to pre-plan, and I try to reverse engineer a cover. So I will start off with a little tiny canvas, like a thumbnail, and just draw, like I'll even have the little Phantom logo on it. And I'm looking at it, it's tiny. I'm thinking, that's a comic that I'm looking at from across the room in the news agency. What's going to stand out? What can I put there? And I'll just put little blobs on there going like, well, I want to see Phantom there. I want to see another character there, and I want to see an elephant there. And then I end up with this blobby little thumbnail, which is, I then blow up to the proper size. I'm going, no matter what I do, I've got to stick to that because consumer Glenn has decreed the little blobs, you don't move them, right? So I start drawing and I'll start laying all the figures out and stuff. And I do this dumb thing where I leave a figure off, and I know I've left the figure off. So, and it's usually always Planet Man. I think because I don't like Planet Man, his helmet is too hard to draw. But I'll just go, so I've got all these figures there and the Jeeps there, and it always fits perfectly, and every square inch is used beautifully, the logo. And Planet Man, he'll just go, yeah, I'll figure him out at the end. And I get to the end, and I just come to this screeching halt, and I go, how am I going to, I've got this dumb space, and I've got to fit this guy I don't want to draw in the dumb space. Why? So the notepad says, next time, Glenn, Planet Man, do Planet Man. Why are you doing all the others? Even if you've got to have a little break, go away half an hour, have a cup of tea, and then come back and go, right, Planet Man time. And don't think of going on to the next step until you've got that bastard in the right spot and he fits. Because there's nothing worse than, it's like this beautiful, complex clockwork mechanism. You've got all the cogs and they're all just fitting in perfectly. And then there's this one bit that you just go, ooh, that's not going to fit. Like, oh. But that's something that I regularly do. But now that I've written in a notepad, I'm not going to do it anymore.
And checking yourself, eh? Like just little check here, past Glenn to present Glenn, like giving him a bit of a, bit of chastisement. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a cool way of doing it. That's an interesting way of doing it, man. A lot, it's everyone's
And
different. It works. Is that something you've started now,
yeah,
or
just kind of the last few months, I reckon.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
another thing I found was that because I'm slow and you're working on the one drawing for maybe weeks,
yeah,
there is a stage where you get bored looking at the same composition.
yeah,
Even though there's nothing wrong with the composition. The composition is still fine. You're going,
yeah,
I might just flip that character. And they'll be, oh, yeah, that looks good. Yeah. And then you waste 2 days with this flipped character, and then you open up something you saved from a week ago and you go, oh, that's so much better. Why did I flip it? You idiot. The blobs. And so it's another thing that I wrote in my notepad is when you get bored, walk away for a bit and then come back fresh and continue,
yeah.
knowledge that the blobs are not lying to you. And yeah,
I think that's great too. The blobs are not lying to you, because it's like what you're sort of saying there is like if you get just a bit too caught up in the frustration, because like sometimes you can get frustrated. I guess I can, like when something feels like it's taking longer than it should. I suppose what you're saying is like breathe, walk away, and follow your original instinct, which was the blobs. And like you're trying to keep yourself on target by writing yourself these notes and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I mean, like even the good bits where you're sort of going really cruising and I'm just loving doing the and yeah, just because like sometimes you can sort of go, you can be sort of get into tormented artist mode, and it's nice to read the notes and you go, no, actually, I'm having a lot of fun, and I've got it written down here, so just get cracking.
Yeah. Do you work like you work from start to finish on a page? I'm assuming you don't, when like, because some people will work on one, and then if they do get to that walk away process, they let it sit for a bit and they'll pick up another piece they've been working on and have a jingle with that.
Yeah, sometimes I do. I try not to, but sometimes you've got no choice. Like, for instance, the last 2 things I did for Fru, there was the elephant wraparound spread thing we saw, and there was also this villain's portfolio piece, which had this character called Mugu in it, and he's terrorizing Diana. She's all bondaged up, and the phantom's coming down the dungeon stairs and stuff. I had to kind of swap between the 2 of those because, and originally there was a third one they wanted, and I got to the stage where I just thought, no, I'm going to stuff up these 2 if I try and do the third one by the deadline. So I just rang Glenn and said, no, third one ain't happening. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do go back and forth, and there's that's fine. But sometimes it's good to just walk away from the drawing board altogether, and just think about something else. And when you come back as consumer Glenn, you can kind of fool yourself that you've never seen this drawing before in your life. And on Mac, you press the space bar and it brings up the instant image of the little JPEG. You don't have to open don't have to open the Photoshop file, and that's great because I just sort of go hum-de-dum-de-dum, look, and then consumer Glenn goes, too dark. There you go, and I go,
yeah. Oh, I like it, man. You've got an interesting way of doing things. There's no doubt about that. While we were talking about you doing like a very iconic Phantom, one thing that Daniel reminded me of today, and I've seen some of the pieces of this artwork, but I want to go back to your period. Now, I believe it was an abandoned project. Was your Batman stuff that you got? Can you walk us through that and what happened with that? Because that's some beautiful artwork, man. What happened?
Well, so Batman, we were doing Batman after, I think we did Phantom. When I say we, I'm talking Barossa Studios guys, which is Bear Heinrich, Rod Tokley, Dave Williams, obviously Dave DeVries. I think that's all. So we finished I think we actually did a couple of comics after Phantom, which didn't get published for some reason. And then we got onto Batman, and by then we were really cooking. But it was like we were raising the bar all the time, and we could never get ahead, and we could never make enough dough, and it was so hard. And I just had a gutful, I think, because it had been like, by that stage, it must have been 6-7 years of not doing a monthly comic every month, but basically moving from company to company and then having a deadline and stuff. So it was like a long time in the treadmill, and I was just over it. I was really like ready, on the verge of having a nervous breakdown. And my editor, Archie Goodwin, who, fabulous guy, just one of the best dudes. And if you ever read about other people talking about Archie Goodwin, they all say the same thing. So it's absolutely true. Just a lovely, lovely guy. He had cancer. He was dying. And I was talking to him going, "Oh, I'm so upset, I'm falling better." And he was like, "Glenn, mate, just take a break. It's just a comic, man." And then he died. And I was like, but, and this is one of those weird things where obviously Archie's death was tragic, but it actually opened a door for me to just walk away, because who else knew about the Batman project? I mean, back in those days, they probably still do it, but you had editors, and they would, like, I think Mike Carlin or whatever, I think he did Superman, all the Superman titles, and Archie did a few Batman ones, and someone else did Wonder Woman and stuff. Well, they were really like kings or princes unto themselves, and they didn't necessarily tell each other, "Oh, I've just got some Australian guys doing a Batman thing." So I don't think anyone, aside from Archie or the accountant, knew that I was doing it, or we were doing it. So when Archie died, I just stopped doing it.
Yeah.
And I never heard a word. Didn't get any focus. For a while, I was just like, and then, about 5 years, it was like, I think it's safe. Yeah. And so that's the story behind that.
Yeah. Oh, it's very fine artwork, mate. Like I've had a good look at that. It's beautiful stuff. I totally understand with a burnout, having to walk away, but like, it is lovely stuff, man. You should be proud of that. And Nick May, I did a course once with Rod Tokley. Is he still drawing?
I don't know, to be honest. Like, Rod and I haven't spoken for ages. We used to be like the best mates, like soulmate friends. And then we had this big falling out, and we haven't I don't think we've spoken since. It was really dumb too. But I mean, like, I think we both had like personal problems. Like, I know with me, I was a big drinker, and I was a huge chain smoker as well. But I was a bad drinker, and I think, like, from my side of things, that was definitely sort of part of the reason for the big sort of blow up we had. I don't drink at all anymore. I mean, I stopped drinking about 10 years ago. It's bloody thing. It's just, I tell you, it doesn't even feel like you're giving anything up. You're getting things. It's like, I remember thinking, I'm never going to have a hangover again in my entire life. This is just brilliant. And then it actually took a little while to readjust to not being in any way hungover. And you're sort of going, this is weird. This is strange. What's going on? And it's like, oh no, this is real life. This is me. And then you start to worry, oh my God, I'm not going to be funny anymore. People will think I'm boring at parties. What you don't know is that when you were drunk, you were a jerk. And now you're not as much, hopefully, not a jerk. And so, again, it's like, it's just win-win. Plus your kidney, your livers and kidney really appreciate it.
Yes.
So all thumbs up for that. But yeah, that's a roundabout way of saying, no, I have no idea if I'm totally still drawing.
Did you find that your artwork and I ask this because it's strange, because we've run a couple of parallels here today. Personally, I am a recovering drinker. I've been sober for over 18 months now. I realised that wasn't good for me either, you know, and I wanted to get better at my artwork. And I have noticed since becoming sober, I am getting better at a lot of things, particularly, I guess, my artwork, because that's my outlet. I don't play sports and stuff, so my predominant, you know, like let myself out is through my art. Did you find that your artwork increased in its productivity and style? And when you had that dream, or when you were drinking and trying to draw, you'd think, ah, it looks so good, you know, like, and then you look back on things now and you go like, oh man, like what, you know, like was that
also the time wasting, you know, and the all the lying to clients and stuff. But yes, I am working on it right now. No, actually, I'm lying in bed, just barely able to talk, and it's just dumb. It's just, you know, and I remember thinking, whenever I get drunk, the next day, the best scenario I could wish for is that I haven't done anything too bad. That's the best. You know, you never sort of wake up drunk. People go, "You were so generous and kind and nice last night. And do you remember helping that?" And no, it's always just like, "Do you remember what you said to such and such? Or do you remember you put your foot through the frigging glass coffee table and you didn't apologise?" And I'm going, oh. Then you spend like the next 2 hours ringing them. "Hi, it's Glenn. I'm really sorry." You know, and also after a while, I think people just get jack of it as well. They'll give you, you know, sort of like fair chances, but in the end, they just want you to stop being a jerk. And then when you stop drinking and everyone just goes, "Oh, great, okay, we can carry on now." I mean, obviously there will be people that you have burnt off, and you've got to just, you know, accept that. But no, it's definitely been great for the drawing, great for the writing, and great for everything. Like I used to just want to sleep all the time, and now 5 hours, 6 hours, and I go to bed and I'm going, I'm really looking forward to getting up in the morning. Oh, that's one thing I haven't mentioned. You know, like I clean in the morning. So like I'll, my wife's the general manager down at Van Diemen's Land Creamery. They do ice cream, and then they have a factory and a cafe and that sort of stuff. And after I stopped doing Haddo's hot dogs, which was my main source of income, I tried to get back into commercial art, and it's just like, I just can't do this again, because I really wanted to just do comics. And Carly said, we need a cleaner. It's like 3 hours every morning. You go in by yourself. You can go in the evening. Like, in fact, I'm going in after this. And then you come home. I get home, like this morning I got up at 2. I got home at 7:30, had breakfast, and I was bloody drawing by 9. And I'll do a day's drawing and I'll forget that I cleaned. But the beautiful thing is I'll forget that I cleaned till the money comes in the bank and I'm going, beauty. And it just takes the pressure off having to pay the bills with the drawing, which I just can't do. It's too hard. Drew could be paying me $1 million a cover and I'd still not be making enough, because I would somehow find a way of taking 2 million years to do it, you know. So yeah, all roads lead to poverty. So except cleaning, which I also really enjoy doing. I've made really fit, and I've lost. I used to be 85, 86 kilos. Now I'm 70.
Yeah.
And I remember the first month of cleaning, I was like, oh, my shoulders. Now I'm zooming around, and I get home, and while I'm cleaning, of course, because it's got nothing to do with drawing, which is brilliant. Because when you're doing commercial art, you are using up your creative petrol.
Yep.
When you stop, you go, I don't feel like drawing anymore. So you don't do your own stuff. But when I'm cleaning, I'm going, well, I'm going to do this. I can think of the changes I'm going to make on that cover. I've got another idea for another cover. Where's my notepad? And then I get home, breakfast, boom. And I just have a great day drawing and feel like $1 million. And, It's great.
So you've found yourself a nice balance at this point in
Yes.
time. You're happy, calm, everything's good, and it shows in your artwork, man.
Well, I reckon so too, because I think I'm a very harsh judge of my own work. And,
well, if you aren't, bloody God, your old mate, consumer Glenn is, from the sounds of the bastard.
Shush, here he comes. Where is that Lumsden? Yeah, and so I'm sort of a harsh judge, and I'm loving it. I'm looking at it going, damn it, I'm really happy with that. And also, I don't feel like I'm in competition or anything with anyone. That's another great thing as well, because in the 90s, it was all about climbing the greasy pole. Oh, he's good, he's too good. But now it's like you look at someone who does a great bit of art, and you just go, that's great. That's all you need to. You just say that's great, because it is, and everyone's happy, because that's the. I mean, it seems to me to be such a tragedy that if your ego stops you from enjoying great bits of art because you didn't do them, it's just the most stupid thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it reminds me of a story I heard about Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. Michelangelo was a huge ego, apparently, and he hated Leonardo, hated anyone mentioning Leonardo, and so basically was unable to enjoy a Leonardo da Vinci painting. And I just think, what a wanker. Okay, Michael, you're great. Leonardo, he's pretty good too, and he's right next door. You could just, no, can't do it. Can't overcome my huge ego. It's idiotic, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't look. I'm with you, man. I don't really understand the competition with outside of yourself. Like for me, I just try and do the best thing I can, and if I'm happy with it, I didn't know I don't think I've got a commercial Leigh, but in me anywhere. But I just judge it on if I'm, yes, that's best representation I can do there and move on. I'm not one for competitions either, because really when it comes to artwork, man, I got one of my family's sort of sayings is, better than, but you're just as good as, so I guess I just don't see the competition, and it's not like running a race. And I've said it before, I don't really see it as, we're not eradicating diseases. We're making art. We're voicing our language, and for a lot of us, I guess our artwork is our language, because outside of doing things like this, a lot of us don't do a lot of talking. We don't do a lot of venting. We don't speak what's on our mind or what's bothering us, and sometimes we find it easier to go to our little A3 pad and pencils and and get it out, man. So I'm with you 100% on the lack of competition. I think
it's a journey within, isn't it? It's like whereas I think if you're in competition, it's more like what's happening out there, and it's all like it just comes down to esteem, I think. Worrying too much about where you are on the totem pole, and wanting to be doing the latest trend or whatever like that. And I've used the word authenticity a few times, but it all to me comes back to that, and that's to do with what's in your heart and exploring that, and constantly asking yourself, I like that. I like polka dots. Why? This is intriguing. This is great. Let's explore that, and because you never. What I love too is imagining your psyche or your soul or whatever in Venn diagram terms, and everything you love is one of the circles, and it's try and stay in the intersecting bit, where the polka dots meet the hot dogs, meet the comics, meet the da-da-da-da. And that's the area that you can just swim in like a warm pool of love or whatever, and just spend the rest of your life just going, oh, no. And of course, there will always be new interests that you're discovering and stuff. And, I love history, and
Yep.
I find a lot of new stuff is actually old stuff that I either overlooked or never knew existed. And Facebook is great for that, for just finding old artists from the 40s and stuff who maybe did paperback covers or magazine lows, and you just go, God, that guy does the best horses, or Jesus, his cars are so good, or how does he do the shiny bits on the glass, And you just go, I want to learn that, and incorporate it into my little box of goodies. So, I can start doing great glass,
Yeah. No, well, man, I love it. I love what you're all about, man. Especially, I guess, just the whole makeup of your, what you've been talking about tonight from a creative perspective as well, too, because from me, from being someone who's relatively new, hearing yourself talk about your ups and downs and your strengths and what your perceived weaknesses, and being very open and things like that is a huge help. And as Ben Sullivan said, in terms of like encouragement, and the one thing that I sort of talk about on the show a little bit is some of us that do this spend so much time by ourselves that you don't often communicate to people, and you don't often talk to other like-minded people. So you do, I guess, self-doubt can creep in to a certain extent, like when you're your judge, jury, and executioner, so to speak, but hearing like what you've been talking about tonight, man, highly encouraging for me. Wow. I'm just I'm tripping out. I'm just trying to enjoy the moment, man, and live in the present, because everything that you've been talking about to me resonates in terms of my short journey, and just where we've had some similarities with, ego, drinking, that sort of stuff, self-improvement.
Rugby union war cries.
Yeah. Like that man, I wake up in the middle of the night some nights, you know what I mean? Like to like green, like, man, that's probably why I like the color green, is because I was just sticking in green, I've been subliminal. I don't even like the bloody color, but because, those dudes were like, well, shout green now. It's like, I probably don't want to fucking look anywhere else, man. It's like red, have a red shirt. No.
Apparently green is one of those colours that they try to avoid using on colours. Colours they try to avoid using on covers, at least in comics, and I know on sort of pulp novels and stuff, because apparently they don't sell as well. It's just, for some reason, people just go, I don't know, I just don't like green. It's weird, because I got nothing against green. But but apparently,
I don't either, really. But until it just, I've had an awakening that maybe I was beaten into my like of green. You know what I mean? Like ridiculed into it, and then it brings me, hang on a minute, because they did up, and then in grade 10 they changed green to white. So what's going? Anyway, existential questions, man. I can answer them another time within myself. Mate, when with your balance in life here and your hard work to get to it, where do you see yourself in the next couple of years, man? Where do you see yourself? Because you're a huge part of like the Australian comic book community industry. Like, where do you see comics with your experience in the future? How do you see the medium staying alive with the pulse? Like.
Well, I really think it's going to be like a boutique. It's a bit like, how LPs have kind of come back a bit. I think it's going to be like that. They'll be there, and I guess while there's life, there's hope. And like maybe every few years, someone will do one and it'll turn into a big movie and people will go, oh, comics, they're great. But I mean, what strikes me is that, you know, like in America, you've got all those Marvel movies and stuff, but that hasn't really improved the budgets and stuff of the comics. It's, I mean, like the actors and the directors, they get millions, and you know, Warner Brothers and stuff, but it doesn't seem to filter through to the people doing the friggin' comics. And I really think that is because of, well, the internet. You know, once something's digital and it's on the internet, forget it, it's gone. You know, and it's like, and musicians have exactly the same problem. Like I remember there's a band I like, The Church, with Steve Kilbey, and I remember some time ago reading an interview where he said that he quit his own band on principle once because he got a royalty check, and for the year's sales, I can't remember if it was from Spotify or whatever, but it was like less than $200, and they sent him the spreadsheet with how many units sold, and you know, it was like lots. And then as you work your way down the spreadsheet, and everyone's taken their little chunk out, and the band, of which there are 4 of them, you guys are less than $200. Have a good year. And he just went, this is, because again, it's like once it's digital, people just download your entire discography. I mean, like I have done it, where and then you take it for granted. You know, you don't even listen to the album in the order that it was done, and you know, like, because again, going back to the 70s, but I used to buy an album and you would listen to it side A and then side B, and you would listen to all the tracks in order, and then you'd read all the little notes and the album cover and stuff, and the guy would say, explain why, you know, they did it in a certain order and stuff. And now it's like all that's just gone. It's just like I've got this entire discography, and I'm going to listen to like 3 songs out of the 3,000, and the others are just going to.
You'll come back in a second. With Daniel Best, my favourite royalty check, which I kept, was for 1 cent. Oh dear. Glenn should be back in a sec. Here he is. Hello, mate. You back?
I'm back. Did I disappear, did I?
Yep. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I didn't even take the opportunity to have another wee.
Oh no, man, no. So, do you remember where you were at probably 30 seconds ago? About where you're up to?
We were talking about
LPs, listening to track, you know, like
Steve Kilbey. Yeah, Steve Kilbey leaving the church because, you know, getting this pissy little, digital, and discographies, and no longer appreciating the body of work. It's just, you know, it's on your hard drive. If you feel like listening to it, you might. If you don't, it can just sit there. And it's the same with, you know, comics and stuff. And, you know, so people sort of can pirate friggin', you know, 100 issues or something, or the latest thing that took the artist God knows how long to draw. And, you know, and it's been going on now for long enough that you've got a generation of people who have learnt that is the way it's supposed to be.
Yep.
And if you say, excuse me, you're breaking copyright, they go, I'm okay with that. I don't, you know, that's fine. No, I'm happy the way things are. And you go, no, that's not what you meant to say. You meant to say, okay, I'll stop doing it. Yeah. No. And then if you get the law onto them, you actually become the bad guy. It's like this fascist guy wants to stop us from downloading all this stuff on the net. You know, like you're thinking, so I'm the bad guy because I don't want people stealing my work and I don't get any money for it.
Yeah.
That's just bloody. But what do you? I don't know. Only thing you can do is never put it on the net.
Yeah.
Never do a hard copy. Someone can always scan it in. I know, but I'm not going to bloody make it easy for them.
Yeah.
I do it for them. They can just. You know.
Yeah. Well, Daniel Best put a comment up when you dropped out before, saying that his smallest royalty check was for 1 cent. So it would have cost them more to bloody mail the letter out, you know, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I think it's the way of the world, isn't it? Like it's something for nothing, something right there. Like I want it now. It's here. Like give it to me, and then throw it aside. Like I mean,
and what's ironic is that the consumer demand for creative work is huge. It's like, more Netflix, more of this. When's the next series of Bosch coming out? When's the next? Why can't we have more Hulk comics and more Hulk movies and stuff? And then it's like, and can you pay the artists for them? It's like, pay for music, pay for art. Yeah,
yeah.
it's like it's. I mean, appreciating the work that creative people do is a learnt thing, and over generations it becomes a habit, which I think is a good habit. But it can just be easily unlearnt, and that's what the computer and the internet has done. Is it's allowed it's sort of people in the 90s got boom, and then there's this sort of chasm, and now we've got the people on the other side who have never paid properly or even thought about it, because the new status quo is it's just on tap for free, and I'm not paying, not paying, sort of hundreds of dollars for something. It's like I'll pay $2, I'll pay 20 cents. I was talking to this guy the other day at work. He's a Colombian bloke, and he designed websites or whatever, and he was like, oh, you can make more money, doing websites design and things like that. And I was going, I'm not really interested in that. And also, I've done commercial art, and I just find it a bit boring doing the logos and stuff. He goes, oh, no. You go on these sites, they're called FIFA. And, there's all these desperate artists, and they're all prepared to do it for $5. And you can even talk them down to like $2, and they all fight amongst each other. And, you say, you do the logo, and you pay them $2, or you don't, whatever. And I was just going, because I have been on those sites before, like 10 years ago, just to check them out when they first started happening. And I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was like, you think, it's like unions never existed, and child labour is still fine, and people work 12-hour days, and logos are done for $2. And and we're meant to just fight each other like dogs for the privilege. And the way that the people who wanted the logos done would go about addressing the artists was just disgusting. It was like, you do this for me and don't even think of you work at a it was just like garbage. And all these people I am from Uzbekistan and I will do it. No, don't do it. I will do it for half the price and give it to you. And you just think, I don't want to be there, man. It's like so depressing. And also, they're not going to get a good logo. They're just going to get some crappy logo which was ripped off from somewhere else, because frankly, for $2, that's all you deserve, So,
mate, it's KPIs. You know what I reckon it is too? It's a succinct change in, I guess, society and stuff like that, where I always chuckle at this is just me again, is like, job done, sent, and then you got some poor bugger, like a mile up the road, you know what I mean? Like gets this piece of paper churned out, and he's the poor bugger that's got to, like hump the 200 kilo oven and stuff like that, and the salesperson's in there getting like the gold and the taking out and stuff, and there's this poor dude, like lumping this thing on his back. You've got to get it up this internal stick, that like it's it's a shame. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, man, I read a lot of 50s and 60s science fiction novels, and mate, people thought those dudes were mad back in the day, but it's funny how much of their ideologies from back then and what they were seeing forward are actually coming true,
Absolutely. Yep. And
and
like the whole this is only going back to the 80s, but like the whole Terminator scenario and the Matrix scenario, it's like, it's friggin' happening, I mean, like, I don't know if you've been following the Ukraine-Russia war, but they're always mentioning the drones and stuff. But it's just sort of like, I don't think they're making as big a deal of it because I'm going, don't you see this is where it's all heading? It'll be like no soldiers. It'll just be drones, like super smart drones that can detect the scent of a human being, maybe even detect your DNA. They just say, we're going to get Chalker. We know he's in the city, and off you go. 50 drones. They'll just go, oh, here he is, hiding under a table. And it sounds something fanciful, but it's just not, you know?
Yeah. It's I read, a mate of mine sent an article through not too long ago, and like neither here nor there. AI, don't agree with it. Okay, I'll put that out there. I believe in creativity from the human. You know what they say, but AI is a part of what is happening out there. So I guess you can't hide behind it. You need to speak about it. Then I suppose to a certain extent adapt. Whether you agree with it or not, there's nothing we can do about it at this stage. It's in play, so it's only going to be further in play. And he sent me through this article about how there was or there is a forum that people can go on and do their artwork and stuff and muck around with. And through Europe, people had been noticing that a particular character had been popping up in their art form. Of like, you know, they might do a landscape, and then suddenly this landscape, they wanted something beautiful, like, you know, 5 o'clock in sunrise, you know, over a lake. And what's produced is this like hellish landscape with this individual there. And one person thought it was an error, you know, like with, you know, I guess their software, their computer, however it is, the language. But then reports of this thing popped up all over Europe and stuff like that for a prolonged period. This thing has gone on. It's named itself, I believe, is Lobe, and it's trying to identify itself as a valid creation, you know, like, and it keeps popping up in these art forms, trying to understand itself, man. And a scientist was having a conversation with it, and it was typing back to him, I don't know why I'm here, I don't know who I am, that sort of stuff. And I read that article and I was just like, oh man, you know?
Yeah, shivers down you. It's like one of those Japanese horror movies, like The Grudge or whatever. It's just like, make it stop.
Yeah. It's definitely happening. So it's
I mean, like yourself, I mean, like, there's no denying it's here. I think it's going to be devastating for people like us, illustrators. And I mean, like, objectively though, I mean, subjectively, positively, I guess, I've had a play with it, and it's fun for about 20 minutes because you're sort of saying things like, penguin who's Dolly Parton flying on a pizza which is made of bricks, and you see what comes up, and sometimes you just go, oh, that's funny. Other times you think that's hopeless, and then you get bored with it. So it's a bit like, I don't know, those sort of funny name generators they used to have, you know, like on the, you know, you get jack them after a while. But obviously this is just early days, and it's going to get, it's like those chess computers, you know, it takes them a while to get better than the top chess master, but it's just going to happen because the what it can do better than the human beings, obviously, is that it doesn't get bored, and it can do billions of computations really, really fast. And so that's like game over, really, isn't it? Because like human beings we can't sort of, I'll just adjust my brain to go a billion times faster. You just can't do it. So that is,
and I guess, you know, at the end of the day, when you hear too of I can't remember the UK publisher, but late last year they moved to AI generated covers, mate. So, you know, obviously, you know, when you do think outwardly about it too, corporate identities are going to look at it for the bottom line because, bottom line things are taken into consideration, like as you would know from your time, doing things. It is an interesting world for artwork. There's no doubt about that. But
yeah, I mean, it just makes me want to just kind of focus just on my stuff and just go, I'm just going to go back and draw the next Phantom cover. Try and make it really good. Even though ALA can probably do a better one. But Phantom will have extra arms coming out his friggin' neck.
Oh, man, I agree with you. There's some things, I still draw on paper with pencils and pens and inks, man. It's like there's something satisfying about simplicity, you know what I mean? Like sometimes I think things are unnecessarily complex in our world, you know what I mean? When you could just scale it all back and, I guess realize it's we're all got to try and find a synchronicity, man, and a rhythm and stuff like that. It's all about unified people and things. So creativity, I hope, from the human never dies, or if it does, you're probably right, mate. We'll be hanging things on that cafe, like in some back street, and like people will be like, oh, it was done by a real human, like, oh, like, so yeah, who would have thought science fiction novels would happen like that? But yeah, mate, I'm going to start slowly winding our show down because you've got some work and stuff this evening. Now, mate, we've pretty much covered everything. I always like to ask, like one question, but we discovered why you do it earlier in the evening. So one last little thing, which is humorous, because I saw it, and my mate Ryan Valla sent it through to me, and we thought it was awesome. Thank you, Facebook user. Did you know that you and Dave's comic book got on cartoonist kayfabe about 2 months ago? One of your drawings from Malibu. Yeah. Name of the comic book escapes me at the moment. If someone out there is can bang up what the name of that comic book was, but you made the kayfabe, mate. So I would say yeah, I would say well done because that seems to be the show at the moment. So congratulations on that and well done. And man, seriously, you've made the 14-year-old boy and me very, very happy getting to meet you tonight. Paradoxically, the 14-year-old boy is still me. So I am a very, very happy man. Man, you're an absolute champion and a legend. Thank you very much for you guys, not just yourself, but Bodyguard. Thank you, Gary.
It's very funny, that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, mate, for all you, not just yourself, but Gary, the Cyclone guys, for my little generation of comic book guys that are still going and stuff like that. And I know there's a lot of us out there that thank you guys very much for trailblazing and letting us as young fellas think to ourselves like, hey, we could do some comics here. This is for real, So the dream continues. So there you go. Facebook users letting you know 90s Marvel fandom as well as he's a fan of, mate. Loved it. So man, thank you so much. You've awesome. All right, so Glenn, where can we get your stuff, mate? If there's anyone out there that wants to immediately go and buy your stuff, man.
The latest Phantom Giantsize, I think, is probably out at the moment. And that portfolio piece, I think you have to get that directly from Frew or go to one of the conventions that are on at the moment. I think they're selling them there. And I think I also did, so there's only covers out at the moment. And I think I did a cover of one of the regular Phantom comics, which might be out as well. So that's all that's out there at the moment, I think. Yep.
All available news agents Hey, so if anyone's out, they're all available at newsagents, your stuff like the Giantsize.
Comic shops or whatever, wherever you get comics these days.
So if anyone's mum's out there buying scratchies at the newsagents or checking a lotto, just veer off down to the back corner and pick up one of the Phantom comics that Glenn does, and bring it back over and slide it up on that counter and give your mum a real sweet smile, man, and say you really wanted to have a look at this stuff, because you never know where it'll take you.
All right. A rude magazine underneath the slide.
Yeah. I never thought about that. Okay, don't do the rude magazine, kids, but hey, I'll leave that entirely up to you. If everyone in the world was, the same, it'd be a very boring place. And who knows, parents can be liberal, Mine were quite strict, but times change. All right, so don't forget to like and subscribe to channels. Friday Night Drink and Draw episode 94 is on this week. It's on the Wild West, so get your drawings in early and you'll get them shown on the show. A little bit of getting yourself out there if you're someone that's nervous, someone just likes to draw, someone that wants to talk, with the same-minded people and stuff. Comics is the place to go. Support Australian comic books. There's a lot of people, really working hard on things that they love out there, and mate, there's so many places. There's Colmex, there's Gestalt, there's Fru, there's Cyclone, there's Reverie, there's just go and search, go and have a look, reach out to people. They're all available. They all say g'day. They love having a yarn about comic books. Now, don't forget the Comic Shop, because that is who sponsors this show and Friday Night Drink and Draws. Over 100 titles of Australian independent comic books from everywhere in Australia, and all for the flat fee of $9. So buy one, it's $9. Buy 10, it's $9. I'd go for 10. I'd tell you to go for 10. But maybe, realistically 7 or 8, it's not a bad number to start at, because there's that much good stuff out there too. Now, just to let everyone know as well, next week will be a pre-recorded show. So I won't be here, but I sort of will be. So, it's... I know, mate. See, that's where I was building with it. You won't be able to tell either, all right? Only,
How many fingers you got?
Well, currently on this hand I have 5. I'm not going to show you the left hand because you can see if I'm real or not next week. That's right. I might just quickly change it in the algorithm just to buggy us all up. But it is Mr. Dean Rankin coming on the Tuesday Chinwag. So I'll be pre-recording that with Dean on Saturday because he's a very busy man and he's nice enough to come on and have a chat, and I'm very much looking forward to that as well. Look, there's really nothing more to say. I'm happy as Larry. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thank you for watching the show. Thank you for your comments. I do apologize if I couldn't get to all of them. I do try my best, but yeah, I had Glenn Lumsden in the house, and wow, pretty awesome, man. I'm happy, and I hope you guys are too. So just remember, always be kind to people. Look out for your mates. Give them a ring. Touch base with them, make sure they're okay, because the world can be troublesome, and some people don't navigate it as well as others, and it doesn't hurt to look out for your people. All right, thank you very much. Sort of see you here next Tuesday night at 7:30, but the show and Saturday's version of myself will be here on Tuesday at 7:30. So everyone, thank you. And remember, community is unity. Thank you, Glenn.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Champion.
This show is sponsored by the Comex Shop. Check out comex.cx for all things Comex and find out what Comex is all about. We hope you enjoyed the show.